and welcome to Australia, home of kangaroos, koalas and more deadly animals that you can shake a boomerang at. But beyond the cuddly and the creepy crawlies lies one of the most diverse and fascinating landscapes on the planet. Australia isn't just a country, it's an entire continent. Covering a whopping 7.7 million square kilometres, it's the 6th largest country in the world. It's bigger than the entire European Union and just a little smaller than the United States. In this video, we're going to be sharing everything you need to know before planning a trip to Australia, including our top recommendations and tips we've learned along the way, so let's get into it. To give you some perspective, we could fit the United Kingdom into Australia 32 times. Now, while Australia is massive, its population is surprisingly small, with around 26 million people. It's like if New York City decided to spread out across an entire continent. In fact, 90% of Australians live on the coast, because let's be honest, while the outback is stunning, no one can resist the call of an Aussie beach. So where does everyone live? The three busiest cities are Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, followed by Perth, Adelaide and Gold Coast. Everyone else essentially lives in the other cities and towns around the coastline, and then you have a few intrepid adventurers who call the outback home. The outback is the heart and soul of Australia. Covering most of the country, it's one of the largest and driest regions in the world. You can drive for hours, and the only thing you'll see is a cloud of dust and maybe a few emus giving you side-eye. But it's also where you'll find some of the most iconic landmarks like Uluru, the world's largest monolith and a must-visit. And let's not forget the Great Barrier Reef, a natural wonder so big you can see it from space. It's the largest coral reef system in the world, stretching over 2,300 kilometers along the northeastern coast. That's roughly the distance from Los Angeles to Houston. It's home to thousands of marine species, from tiny Nemo-like fish to majestic sea turtles, and of course the occasional great white shark. But don't worry, most of the reef's residents are friendlier than they look. Believe it or not, Australia isn't all desert and beach. In fact, you'll find mountains and rainforests too. The Great Dividing Range stretches along the eastern coast, creating stunning mountain vistas and lush green valleys. Up north, you'll find the Daintree Rainforest, one of the oldest rainforests in the world and an area David Attenborough himself once described as the most extraordinary place on Earth. And let's not forget the islands. Australia has over 8,000 of them, from the stunning Whitsunday Islands, which are perfect for sailing, to the wild and rugged beauty of Tasmania, where you might just run into a Tasmanian devil or at least a wombat. Australia is huge, so it's no surprise that the climate varies a lot, depending on where you go. Australia has 6 main climate zones, ranging from tropical in the north to the temperate in the south, with everything in between. So let's break it down. Let's start up north, in places like Darwin in the Northern Territory and Cairns in northern Queensland. Here's where you'll find Australia's tropical zone. Fun fact, they only have 2 seasons, wet and dry. From November to April, it's the wet season, which means heavy rain and humidity. Think lush green landscapes, but also big thunderstorms, perfect for experiencing those epic waterfalls. Then from May to October, it's the dry season, with warm temperatures and clear skies, ideal for exploring the Great Barrier Reef or the Red Centre. Now let's move to the heart of Australia, the outback. This is the iconic red desert landscape covering central Australia. It's super dry and can be very hot in summer, often reaching 40 degrees or more. Winter though is way cooler and pleasant for travel, especially from May to August. Just be prepared for cold nights because yes, it can get chilly in the desert. So if you're visiting Uluru or Alice Springs, pack for both warm days and cool evenings. If you're heading to the southern cities like Melbourne, Adelaide and Perth, you'll get 4 true seasons, much like in Europe or the northern US. Summers, December to February, are warm and Perth in particular can get extremely hot during this period, while winters, June to August, can be pretty chilly. Melbourne especially is famous for its 4 seasons in one-day weather, so keep an umbrella handy just in case. Spring, September to November, and autumn, March to May are the sweet spots here, with mild temperatures and fewer crowds, perfect for sightseeing or exploring wine country. Over to the east coast, where you'll find places like Sydney, Brisbane and the Gold Coast, you'll experience a subtropical climate. That means warm, humid summers and mild winters, though Sydney is cooler on average than the more northern cities in southern Queensland, where even in winter, the beaches are often still pleasant enough for a swim. It's basically a beach lover's dream year-round. But heads up, summer is also storm season along the coast, so it's not unusual to get some quick rain showers along with the humidity. Last but not least, we have Tasmania, the island down in the south. Tassie's got a cooler, wetter climate with 4 distinct seasons. Summer is mild and it's ideal for outdoor adventures, and it's also the high season for tourism, while winter can get really chilly, especially in the highlands. Think cozy fires and maybe even a bit of snow. One thing to remember though is that Australia's seasons are the opposite of what you might be used to if you're visiting from the northern hemisphere. Summer here runs from December to February, while winter is June to August, so it's the perfect holiday destination for those wanting to escape winter. Now that you know what kind of weather to expect, let's talk about the good stuff, all the awesome things you can do around Australia. From underwater adventures to epic hikes and everything in between, Australia has it all. So let's dive in. First up, if you love the ocean, you have to explore Australia's coral reefs. The Great Barrier Reef is the largest coral reef system on Earth, stretching over 1,400 miles of Queensland's coast. You can snorkel, dive, or even take a glass-bottomed boat if you'd rather stay dry. Either way, it's like stepping into a whole other world. But did you know there's another amazing reef on the other side of the country? Head over to Ningaloo Reef in Western Australia, where you can snorkel right off the beach and even swim with the whale sharks. Yep, the gentle giants of the ocean. It's a bucket list activity for sure, and personally, Ningaloo Reef is one of our favourite destinations in all of Australia. Next, let's go to the Whitsunday Islands with its bright white sandy beaches, turquoise waters, and some of the best island hopping in the world. These islands are right near the Great Barrier Reef, so you can easily combine snorkeling with a day of beach hopping. Be sure to visit Whitehaven Beach. The sand here is so fine it squeaks when you walk on it. It's one of the most beautiful beaches in the world, and trust me, even more breathtaking in person. If you're into hiking and want to see some jaw-dropping landscapes, the Blue Mountains near Sydney are a must, as well as Tasmania's incredible wild and rugged landscape. Queensland is home to some incredible hikes, especially in the scenic rim, and there's also the great walks along the coast. And if you want to tick off Australia's highest mountain, head to Mount Kosciuszko. If you're an avid surfer or wanting to take some lessons, then Australia is the best place for it. You won't go wrong heading to the Gold Coast with miles of beaches, surf schools and relaxed beach towns. It's perfect for both beginners and pros. And if you enjoy the surf vibe, be sure to check out Byron Bay, one of Australia's most iconic surf towns located in northern New South Wales. Of course, no trip to Australia is complete without a visit to the outback. Uluru is one of the country's most iconic sights, especially at sunrise or sunset when it glows bright red. Within the Red Centre, there's also the incredible Kings Canyon, which makes for an impressive sunrise hike. And if you're looking for somewhere to cool down, then pay a visit to Ormiston Gorge and Ellery Creek, the perfect place to cool down under the outback sun. Now that we've covered what to do, let's talk about how to get around this massive country. Australia is huge, so having a plan for transportation is key. Flying is usually the best way to cover long distances in Australia. From Sydney to Perth is a 5-hour flight, so as you can imagine, taking a plane is sometimes the only realistic option. Major cities like Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Perth are well connected by airlines like Qantas, Virgin Australia and Jetstar. Flights are especially great if you're on a tight schedule, and there are plenty of budget options if you choose to book in advance. So if you're going coast to coast, hop on a flight and save yourself days of driving. However, if you're up for an adventure, road trips in Australia are the way to go. Renting a car or camper van gives you the freedom to explore at your own pace, and is an extremely popular way to explore the country. Most travellers who are staying long term buy their own transportation, but there are also plenty of rental companies, though the cost of hiring a camper van can be costly, especially during the high season. If you have the flexibility, it's worth checking out Transfer Car, who offer free car and camper van hire across the country if you transport the vehicle to their desired location. Oh, and if you're looking to hire a car during your time in Australia, then check out East Coast Car Rentals and use our code CJExplores for 10% off your next car hire. We'll link them in the description below. If you're on a budget and don't mind a slower pace, buses are a solid option for getting around Australia. Greyhound Australia connects major cities, towns and even some more remote spots. It's a cheap way to get from A to B and ideal for shorter trips. Plus there's the hop on hop off pass option, which is perfect if you want to stop and explore along the way. Just be ready for long drives between cities, as Australia's distances can be deceivingly far. There are also train options, though the country isn't as well connected as it could be. There's high-end train travel experiences like the Guard that takes you through the outback, or the Indian Pacific that crosses the entire continent from Sydney to Perth. There are also everyday trains connecting cities like Brisbane to Sydney, which are fairly affordable but quite slow. Overall, Australia is considered an expensive country to visit and travel, but for most it's more than worth every penny spent. We'll break down the different budgets and share price expectations for each topic. When it comes to accommodation, backpackers can expect to pay anywhere between 25 to 75 Australian dollars per night for a shared dorm in a hostel, depending on location and the time of the year. Major cities during high season see those higher prices, but you can find prices closer to the $25 to $30 mark in the smaller towns. A private room in a hostel can range anywhere between $80 to $200. For the mid-range budget, you can expect to pay between $150 to $250 for a hotel room. When it comes to eating out, an average meal costs between $20 to $25, and you can double, sometimes triple that budget for more upscale restaurants. The average coffee costs around $5, and for a beer around $10. Alcohol in general is quite costly. Day trips and tours fluctuate, but I would say most cost from at least $80 to $90 up to a few $100s. If you're traveling on a backpacker budget, I would say a safe budget would be close to $100 per day. You could lower this by cooking at the hostel, enjoying car share rides, and taking part in free activities like hiking and exploring by foot. For a mid-range budget, we would suggest $200 to $250 per day, but this could go up significantly if you plan to eat out daily and take part in tours. If you're visiting Australia for tourism purposes, you will need to apply for an e-visitor visa. This can be done easily online and takes on average 1 day to process. This is a multiple entry 12-month visa, though each stay can be no more than 3 months at a time. If you want to have the opportunity to work in Australia while you travel, then you can apply for the Working Holiday Visa, which allows for 12 months of travel with permission to work. The visa currently costs $650, and if you meet the criteria, you are able to apply for a second and third Working Holiday Visa after the first expires. And there we have it, our top tips and recommendations for Australia. We hope this video has helped you plan your trip and you have the best time in the land down under. It really is a beautiful country. We have plenty of Australia city guides and travel experiences in our Australia playlist, which I'll link below in the description. If you found this video useful, please hit the like button and subscribe so we can continue making more travel guides so you can travel better. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.